Ellis Park Stadium is a rugby union and association football stadium in the city of Johannesburg, Gauteng Province, South Africa. It hosted the final of the 1995 Rugby World Cup, which was won by the country's national team, the Springboks. The stadium was the country's most modern when it was upgraded in 1982 to accommodate almost 60,000 people. Today, the stadium hosts both football and rugby and is also used as a venue for other large events, such as open-air concerts. It has become synonymous with rugby, as the only time when rugby was not played at Ellis Park was during 1980 and 1981, when the stadium was under construction during the upgrade. The stadium was originally named after Mr. J.D. Ellis, who made the area for the stadium available. A 5-year £450 million South African rands naming rights deal was signed in 2008 with the Coca-Cola Company, resulting in the stadium being named Coca-Cola Park between 2008 and 2012. League, provincial, and international soccer games have all been played at the stadium, and it has seen such teams as Brazil, Manchester United and Arsenal play. Ellis Park Stadium is the centerpiece of a sporting sector in the southeast of Johannesburg, where it neighbors Johannesburg Stadium, Standard Bank Arena, Ellis Park Tennis Stadium, and an Olympic-class swimming pool. Ellis Park is home to the following teams: Lions, Super Rugby Southern Hemisphere Rugby Competition; Golden Lions, Currie Cup Domestic Rugby Competition. Cricket matches were held at the stadium in the past. Ellis Park hosted 6 test matches between 1948 and 1954, but it has not been used for first-class cricket since New Wanderers Stadium opened in 1956 and is now used only for rugby and soccer. History. In 1889, when after a long and hard-fought battle the Transvaal Rugby Football Union was formed and established a domain, the first games were played at the Wanderers Club's stadium, whose grounds were situated where Johannesburg Park Station is today. Rose between the different rugby clubs as well as the Wanderers Club's claim of the field for the use of cricket games, forced the Transvaal Rugby Football Union to look for an alternative. An area with a quarry and garbage dumps in Doornfontein was identified in 1927 as the possible alternative. The Transvaal Rugby Football Union negotiated with the Johannesburg City Council's Mr. J.D. Ellis for the availability of these grounds, and 13 acres was made available. On 10 October 1927 the final rental agreement was signed. A quote of £600 was accepted for the grass, and with a loan from the City Council to the amount of £5,000, the building of the new stadium could commence. The stadium was built in 8 months, and in June 1928 the first test was played against the All Blacks. Thus was born Ellis Park, which became internationally renowned and synonymous with rugby. Crowds of between 38,000 and a record crowd of 100,000 against the British and Irish Lions attended the matches. Ellis Park played the host for cricket matches after an agreement was reached between Transvaal Rugby Football Union and the Transvaal Cricket Union. From 1947, when the cricket pitch was laid, until 1956, Ellis Park was host to various cricket matches, with the final games played in the 1953-54 series against New Zealand. Cricket then moved to its new venue, where the current Wanderers still is today. On 28 April 1969, the Transvaal Rugby Football Union formed a stadium committee to investigate the possibilities of a new stadium, since the one in use did not meet all the modern requirements. 15 years later, after the game between Transvaal and the World Team on 31 March 1979, the old Ellis Park was demolished. Games were played at the Wanderers while the stadium was being rebuilt. A new Transvaal Rugby Football Union management was elected in 1984 with Dr. Louis Lewitt as chairman and Professor Joe Pullman as his deputy. The decision was taken to place Ellis Park Stadium under the management of a trust. In 1987, after the Ellis Park Stadium was listed on the stock exchange and due to sound financial management by Dr. Lewitt, Ellis Park had announced that the debt to the amount of R53 million was fully paid and a further 86 suites could be erected. Today the Golden Lions Rugby Union and Ellis Park Stadium Limited are debt-free and have cash resources of more than all the other unions and South African Rugby Union combined, as well as borrowing powers of a similar amount. In 2005, Ellis Park made history by becoming the first black-owned stadium in South Africa. The Golden Lions Rugby Football Union passed the management of the Ellis Park precinct to a company with 51% black ownership. Intertsalesagard, Orlando Pirates FC and Ellis Park Stadium Limited make up the new management of the Ellis Park precinct. The stadium was witness to an incident during a Premier Soccer League football match between Orlando Pirates and Black Leopards on the 17th of January 2007, when high winds blew several sideline advertising boards onto the pitch, striking a linesman and 3 players. Play resumed 7 minutes later, but the match was ultimately abandoned 6 minutes before full-time due to sudden torrential rains and lightning. The game's kick-off previously had been delayed 15 minutes by a power failure. Disaster of the 11th of April 2001. In 2001, a stampede occurred during a soccer game between Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs, with 43 people killed. The Ellis Park Stadium disaster is to date the biggest of its kind in South Africa. Concerts. Whitney Houston's concert was recorded and released as a home video titled Whitney, the Concert for a New South Africa. A year later, also Roxette's concert during the Crash, Boom, Bang World Tour was recorded and released on VHS home video. Sporting events. 1995 Rugby World Cup. In 1995, South Africa hosted the Rugby World Cup, and the final was held at Ellis Park on the 24th of June in front of 65,000 spectators. South Africa beat New Zealand 15-12 in extra time. 2009 FIFA Confederations Cup. Ellis Park was one of the host venues for the 2009 FIFA Confederations Cup. 2010 FIFA World Cup. Ellis Park hosted 5 group games, 1 second-round game and 1 quarter-final of the 2010 FIFA World Cup, for which its capacity was increased by 5,000 seats on the northern side only, to 62,000. Areas like the Presidential Suite also received a facelift. There was also a hospitality room and new changing rooms. The total cost of renovations was R500 million and were completed in June 2008, 2 years before the World Cup. Construction. More than 30,000 square meters of concrete was poured into the structure's shutters. More than 4,500 tons of reinforcement was used in the floor area of 48,000 square meters, and this does not include the seating areas. Nearly 500,000 pockets of cement went into the work done over 3.2 million man-hours. There are about 3.1 million bricks laid at the stadium. 1,372 windows of various sizes, more than 4.1 kilometers of handrails and a total of 70 kilometers piping for chairs. There are 5,200-watt speakers, 30 30-watt speakers and 245 speakers clustered around the stadium.